Good evening, everyone. Hope you all are doing absolutely well. Please forgive me for the 5 to 6 minute delay start. We were trying to work out some technical difficulties, but I'm excited about the chance to be able to bring back our conversations with the Covenant Brothers for our March edition. As we know, we convene every fourth Sunday, 7 o'clock p.m. In the live stream virtual space. I'm grateful to God that we are live streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We're on multiple platforms at the same time to be able to bring you just a transparent conversation with me and my covenant brothers. I am grateful that God gave a vision. The vision is coming to pass. Thank you all for being consistent supporters and subscribers to this conversation. Tonight is going to be a challenging discussion, but a necessary discussion. And so we don't want to delay that any further. I want to first bring in my brother, Pastor Julius Harris. Pastor Harris, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's happening, bro? Glad to be on, man. Looking forward
Yes,
to the
sir.
conversation tonight.
Yes, sir, man. That's right. It's Pastor Julius Harris. He's from New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church in Havana, Florida, one of my covenant brothers. I'm so very proud of all the great things that God has him doing. And I'm excited about our conversation tonight. Next, we're going to bring in my dear brother, Pastor Roosevelt Rogers III, the pastor of the Old Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, also in Havana, Florida. What's going on, Ro?
Everything good, man. What's going on? Glad to be on tonight. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. Then we're going to bring in Pastor Richard Ash II, the pastor of the Net Church in Quincy, Florida. What's going on, Ash?
What's up, man? How you doing?
All is well, bro. Looking forward to our conversation tonight, man.
Definitely, definitely.
And lastly is our brother, Pastor Bernard E. Hudson of the Arnett Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Quincy, Florida. What's going on, B?
Not much. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Amen. Before we get started, I want to make all of you aware our viewing audience of something that's great happening this upcoming Friday, which is Good Friday. Our brother Bernard had a vision, and so B kind of share the vision for this upcoming Friday, which is Good Friday, man.
Yeah, God shared with me last year. It was pretty close to Holy Week, Passion Week last year, and we didn't get an opportunity to do it, but God placed it in my spirit that this year He wanted us to be able to get together, to be able to celebrate Good Friday, to do the 7 last words of Christ. I'm going to be holding that at Arnett Chapel, and I have all of my covenant brothers who are going to join us, Pastor Julius Harris, Richard Ash, Derek McGee, Roosevelt Rogers, and we could not do this and be in true style and not have some women to help us out, because women carry the gospel just as much as men. So we have Reverend Nikisha Harris, my pretty preaching praying partner, Reverend Lisa, who's going to join us. And I promise you, you want to be in the house. You want to be there, because I feel that there's going to be a mighty move from God that's going to happen in that place. You can join us on our live streams as well. Look for the Net Virtual Worship on Facebook, and also Arnett Chapel AME Quincy on YouTube, and you'll be able to see it. The 7 last words on this Good Friday at 7 p.m.
Thank you, my dear brother. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to have a great show tonight. Thank you all for being a part of this once again. You have been with us from the beginning of this vision coming to pass. I am grateful to my covenant brothers for seeing the vision that God gave and jumping on board and letting us have this great discussion. Tonight is going to be a challenging but transparent conversation. Our topic tonight is the struggle is real, the pain of Black men and boys. And I want to first allow my brother, Pastor Julius Harris, to kind of speak to this, because honestly, this topic came from him, the text that he sent to us. So Jay,
Oh,
man, if you
wow,
will,
man.
yeah, man, just kind of share what was on your heart, man, when you put forth this topic.
Absolutely, bro, man. I think that, so many brothers, man, are just in pain. Man, just recently, I think one day last week I was at the bookstore, and there was something that was going on outside the bookstore. And I went over to kind of just see what was going on. And I met a couple guys, and man, just meeting those brothers, man. And once I told them that I was a pastor, man, that was it. I'm certain you guys have dealt with that as well, man. When people know that you're pastoring, man, they, and man, I was just amazed, man, just at just the level of weight that these brothers were carrying, man. I mean, it's just amazing. And so, and these are just guys I just met, but man, the struggle is real, and I think that this conversation is needed, is necessary, bro. I think there are a lot of conversations that a lot of brothers, men, and young boys need to have, man, that we just never have. And so I'm excited about it, man. And I think that, by us having this conversation, man, lives are going to be changed. And and some lives will be affected, man, by what we do.
Amen, brother. Thank you for that, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, on every one of our show, the chats are live. You put a comment in there. It may or may not appear on the screen. We want you to be interactive with us tonight. For the latter part of our show, we always open up for audience participation. If you have a question that you want one of us or all of us to address, please put that in the chat, and at the appropriate time, we will address that. But let's delve into tonight's conversation. We have a few questions that we wanted to allow to begin our conversation. So the first question we're all going to respond to, and it's simply, Black man, how are you really doing? I'm a person who believes in stats and believes in bringing forth those stats. And so one of the stats that I saw is studies examining trauma exposure amongst community samples of Black males show that approximately 62% have directly experienced a traumatic event in their lifetime, right? And so at least 62% of Black men have experienced some level of trauma. But here is the reality. Not every Black man who's experienced trauma has been permitted to be honest about that trauma or its impact. Some of us had even been allowed to even admit that we are hurting and that we need help. And so we want to be able to have this honest conversation and be transparent, but also in hopes of being able to help each other in this regard. So I'll open up and start with you, Ro. And how are you really doing?
Bro, for the most part, man, I'd say I'm doing good. Can't say that I've always been in a good space, but grateful for you brothers. I'm grateful for persons that I can pour into me, that I can talk to. But if we were to be transparent and real, man, we don't always have it together. We don't always have the answers, man. And I think just being a Black man in today's time, man, and I just talked to this today, man, I think we're frustrated, man, because I think for the most part, we're doing everything we know to do. But sometimes, man, it seems like we're getting beat up on every end. We gotta, some kind of way, find a way to bounce back. And especially, man, and if I could just speak to this transparently, man,
Please.
Being bivocational and working for state government has kind of put me in a tough situation, man, because there are a lot of things that you want to speak to, but you can't because of the climate that we're in from the political state, man. And sometimes, man, I think people think we don't care. And that's a painful feeling, man, when you do care, but you can't say nothing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would say right now, D.
Yeah, that's great, bro. That's great. Ash, why don't you jump in, man? How are you doing?
For the most part, man, I'm doing well. I don't find out a lot of times how heavy certain things are in my life until I like take a vacation or take a break, and that's when I realize sometimes how much stuff that I do care, and I know it's required of me because I am a man, so I was built to do this. But sometimes it gets to a point where you wish sometimes that it was a way to lighten the load sometimes, if you would. But I know that I'm built for it. But because a lot of times, even in this space tonight, I'm glad we get this opportunity to kind of talk and let others kind of hear the things that we may go through, because a lot of times we're not afforded as men the space where you can just be like, hey man, I'm struggling, or hey man, this is too much. You know what I'm saying? Because we expect it to just handle it, just take it, suck it up, let's go. You know what I'm saying? And you have to a certain extent, I do understand that, but it's good to sometimes, let it be known that, hey man, things are tough right now. And I'm glad that I have brothers like you guys who all of us have the same calling, if you would, in ministry, as well as working another job, that we can actually be able to, have someone that can attest to the same things we may go through. So it's tough sometimes, especially being a Black man, where you expect it, if you would, that things don't bother us like it do others. So some of us was taught that even as kids, that you got to always be tough, you don't cry, You don't show emotion, and I think that has hurt a lot of us
Mm.
coming up. That we were told these things, which all we did was then internalize them and kind of, and you know how it's like with anything else, anything that you keep pushing down and
Yes,
suppressing,
sir.
eventually, like a spring, it's not gonna be, you're not gonna be able to compress it no more. And when it all comes out, and it comes out sometimes in the wrong manner. So as of right now, I can't complain, but I understand that it can be tough though. It is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jump on in, Jay.
Oh man, great, bro. That was great from the brother that's listening to that. Man, listen, bro, the struggle is real.
Yeah.
Let me start that, man. The struggle is real. Let me just be transparent too, as Roy and Ash were just saying. For the last 2 weeks, bro, I wanted to be out from preaching, but I couldn't. Because I got some other issues that I'm having to navigate and deal with, man. And I just needed to take last Sunday off, and I needed to be off today.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. Man, I called. This is a little comical. Man, I called 4 preachers this week, man, and nobody was available. They couldn't do it, so I had to end up preaching anyway, man. And so, and man, I think for us pastoring, man, sometimes you're not afforded that opportunity, man, to take off sometime when you need to. I mean, we talk about that transparently, that sometimes you have to just shut it down and leave. But I had to be there for obvious reasons. But overall, honestly, man, I think I'm in a good place.
Okay.
But let me also just say this, that man, this conversation, man, I've been excited about it just to be able to have it, because so many black men and black boys are in pain, bro. A lot of us. I'm reading through that book still, The Invisible Eight by Courtney B. Vance and Dr. Robin Smith. And the relevant question that book hopes to answer is this: how do we begin to uplift and empower black men in a world that refuses to see their humanity?
Wow.
Wow, man. For so many of us, bro, they don't allow us to be human. And man, I was just talking to a black brother recently, man, and I told him, I said, listen, I said, man, I can handle your humanity.
Come on now.
And I say that because of this, man, because we're not afforded that a lot. But in that book, watch it, they suggest that the tough question that black men should be asked is, where does it hurt? Not does it hurt? You know what I'm saying? Because at some point, man, we're all hurt or in pain about something, but where does it hurt? They also suggest that we gotta normalize that pain is a part of being human. It's not a disease. It's not something that makes us weak, man. Last semester, I took a class on crisis and trauma counseling, and I was taught how to counsel people in crisis and those who are just kind of navigating trauma. And man, our trauma, I learned this through research as well, that our trauma has become the most profitable thing in America.
Oof.
And here's why they suggest: people want the pain to stop. So most of everybody's trauma happened years ago, maybe in childhood or something like that, and people have been carrying it for so long. And the harsh reality, bro, is that people oftentimes die by suicide because they want the pain to stop. But there is help and there is hope. And man, every time I get a chance, man, on this platform or others, I'm going to encourage black men, man, to get a therapist. I think it's life changing to get a therapist.
There you go.
It's not just for white people, for rich people, or for sick people. I mean, it's you're not crazy if you go to therapy. Therapy, I think, helps us to see what went on in our past and how it's showing up in our future.
Yes, sir.
And another thing, and then I'll stop here. In that book, also it talks about the consequences of the ache. And some of the consequences are depression and anxiety, over functioning, and then being absent in relationships, man. And so, and I also want to say this. I think it's so important, man, that you have, inner circle, and so, man, I'm appreciative for you guys, man. I'm telling you, man, the older I get, man, the more appreciative I am, man, of genuine brotherhood, man, and friendships, because you really do need a safe place. And a safe place is an emotional place of support without judgment.
That's right. That's right.
And to the brothers that I just met that I was just talking about, man. I mean, these are cats that I met for the first time. I mean, one brother I met for the first, he never don't know me from Adam. I met him for the first time. And when he understood that I was a pastor, man, he just started. He just, I mean, man, I won't disclose, but man, he said a lot, man. And because he don't have a safe place. And so, man, I just think that again, that's highly important, man. But I'll stop there.
So, B, your turn, brother. Speak to us. How you doing, man?
And I'm doing pretty good. I will say that there have been times it's been pretty rough, been some rough times, some struggles. And I think one of the things gets to what Ash said is that nobody really asked you.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to think about in the course of your week, how many times somebody asked you how you were doing and really wanted to hear what you had to say. Sometimes we're being cordial when we say those things, but think about how many times someone asked you, how are you really doing? And I think I made a comment a few episodes back about how there was this one person at the church where I previously used to pastor, and she would make it her point to come to me after service and say, how are you doing? And she would sit down and she wanted to hear how I was doing. And so what we get used to, and this goes to the home as well. So at the church, our family doesn't need us to be pastor. They want us to be father. They want us to be husband. But if we're honest, sometimes you don't get that opportunity to say how you're actually doing.
Yes, sir.
You don't get the opportunity to talk about those frustrations and those things that are coming up against you. And so you don't get a chance to mention it. Sometimes you want to say, I'm mad. Sometimes you want to say, I'm hurting. Sometimes you want to say, you know, I'm afraid of this, because they think as men that we're not supposed to have those kinds of, especially as a black man, because we're so, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. We're demonized sometimes, or we're made to seem as though we don't have those kinds of feelings. So you don't get an opportunity to be able to deal with it on that level. And so you end up doing what Ash mentioned earlier, and that's suppressing that stuff. That's bottling it up. This is what my daddy told me, God rest his soul. He said, pressure will bust a galvanized pipe. That's what my dad, and I never will forget that, because what he was essentially saying is that no matter how strong you think you are, if you get enough in you, that pressure at some point is going to do some damage. And that's what we have to understand as men, especially as black men, is that society has put us in a bad place, and we have to figure out how to navigate that. We need counselors, we need, therapists, we need platforms like this where other people can hear it, because somebody listening tonight and they're thinking, I don't have anybody I can really be open and honest with. I don't have anybody I can kind of discuss these things with. So we need these kind of platforms. You need the brotherhood. You need a safe space where you can really be who you are, where you can say some things that you couldn't necessarily say to other people. And we always talk about you don't bleed down, you have to bleed up. And I know that sounds deep, but the truth is, some people can't take who you are if you showed them who you are.
My goodness.
And what I mean by that, if you were real about how you were feeling, it kind of distorts how they see you. Now, I'm not saying it applies to everybody, but sometimes they can't handle, I'm hurting. Sometimes they can't handle, I'm frustrated, and those kind of things. And so that's what I want to say. I'm doing pretty good right now, but as I relate to you all, in making this journey, and there were some things that happened that I had happen in 2023, where it seemed like it was one thing after another. I had an uncle that had my godson to be killed, and in a violent way, and having to do both of those funerals. And I had someone to ask me, "Did you have a chance to really grieve?" And so when I began to think about it, I was like, "No, I just kind of pushed it to the side." And you keep going. Yeah, you shed tears, but how are you really dealing with it? And those things that we don't deal with come back to haunt us.
Yeah. To answer my own question, man, I would respond by saying I'm conflicted, and I wasn't thinking about that until Ro gave his answer, right? It's, and our next question is going to bleed into our next question, but you asked when you made the statement about, as you be about, people really never ask you how you're doing. I'm blessed where I have two outside of my family individuals who weekly will send me a text. One of them is a deacon of mine. He'll just send me a text and say McGee, and I know that text is basically him checking in. Another one is a dear one to my heart. I call her Mama Ann. She texts me once a week, at least once a week, if not multiple times during a week. And the question is simply, all is well, ? And she awaits me to respond. And if I don't respond, I'm going to get a phone call from her. But it is challenging, man, as I've gotten older, right? The fact of the matter is every traumatic experience you've encountered comes with triggers, right? There are things from my childhood that came again in my adulthood. And so I was the anti-therapy guy, right? I am now a strong proponent of therapists, strong proponent of getting someone that you can have conversation with. I heard Pastor Reginald Sharp say it this way. He said, you don't go to therapy because you're crazy. Go to therapy so you don't become crazy, right? You go to be able to get out of you what's in you. My coin phrase of people at my church has always been, anything that's suppressed will eventually become volcanic. Similar to what Bernard's dad said. At some point, you're going to have an eruption if you don't deal with it. And the challenge sometimes is that eruption may come even when you're not prepared for it to come. And those closest to you, your children, your spouse, they may end up getting the result of that eruption because it just became too much pressure in that regard. We are expected to show up and perform at a high level every single day, no matter what arena you're in. We're expected to be that way. We're expected to always be at top tier. And there are individuals in your lives, in our lives, that cannot handle you not being at peak performance. There are individuals that can't handle if you call in sick or you don't show up at all. And the reality of it all is that there is a weight that comes along with this. And so being Black in America or just being Black in general, man, it's a pressure point. You add in that we are also we are Black husbands and we are Black fathers, right? And so we want to do right by our spouses and by our children. And so there are people who have a negative connotation because they read about this Black man doing something wrong. The rest of us now get defined based on that. But the level of trauma, if we go back to just the impact of slavery on Black men, right? Imagine being a Black man where you are forced to watch or know that your wife has been raped by massa. Imagine being a Black man and you've been disregarded, disrespected, and abused in the face of your woman, of your children, or you've been sold off and your family had to watch it, right? They disperse you. Imagine those things, and never being allowed to handle publicly or privately the pain of that situation, right? Some Black men never had a Black man in their life, right? So many examples, man. And so some of us are on the job training, all these things. And so you weigh that. I am blessed to have a really good number of Black men in my church. And we try to just have simple conversations, right? In our men's small group. And one thing that you realize is sometimes what a Black man wants to be able to do is just pause long enough to just breathe, right? Just to let out a sigh of relief because they've been holding it in all day or all week or all month or all year, and they want to be able just to say, whew. And that's hard to do, man, because we don't easily share openly in that regard, and that's the hope of tonight's conversation, man, is to really be able to be honest with ourselves and with those close to us and say, hey, man, in this moment, I'm doing all right. And I can tell you in this moment, although I'm conflicted, I'm all right. My confliction is, as Roosevelt mentioned, is that thing that you want to be able to say, you need to be able to say, but based on however you're working, wherever you're working, sometimes it challenges you in that regard. As pastors, our congregants are looking at us to bring about some level of peace and clarity as to what's going on in the world. If you grew up in church, you know the beacon of hope in the Black community has always been the Black church. And so when everything's going awry in the community, the Black church was always there in that regard. But you got to check in on the pastor, right? He or she, and make sure they're doing all right, man. Because sometimes, we are bleeding as we're leading, bleeding as we're leading. Before we move on, man, anybody else want to respond on this and just kind of expound upon their answer or share anything else? I don't want to cut anybody short.
Derek, let me add something, man.
Please, sir, please.
One of the things when we think about it is when we look at the life of Jesus and we look at even leading up to this week, man, he had a breaking point.
Yes, sir.
And I think sometimes as black men, we like y'all keep saying, man, we try to suppress it. But if Jesus almost broke, as divine as he was,
yes, sir,
you know, he had to pray and ask God 3 times, man, you know, let this cup be moved, man. But God didn't move it. But it was on that third prayer, man, that after he said, God, your will be done, man, that's when God sent the angels to minister to him. And I think sometime, man, we got to pause long enough to hear God give a response to our prayers.
Yes, sir.
And I think sometime, man, we on the go, we move, and everybody looking for us an answer, man. Like I told you earlier, man, I'll be honest, man, I'm tired tonight. You know, I preached at 10 o'clock. Got a text yesterday from a member that their mom is transitioning, man. So she's in hospice. And so, you know, when they move in the hospital, you don't know how long it is. So as pastor, you know, in the back of your mind, you're like, hey, if I don't get down there, man, what's going to be said? Mm-hmm. So I rushed down there, see them, rushed back to Georgia for a 3 o'clock service, you know, knowing that we got this, man. And so, you know, at some point, you know, we got to find time to release. And so we're not built to carry this thing alone. So again, like we always echo, man, I think it's good that we have this circle and it's very intimate, man, that we can share those vulnerable moments. And a lot of preachers, man, a lot of men, they don't have that, you know, because they worry if I say this to you, who's going to hear it next?
Yes, sir.
And I think that's how sometimes we've been damaged, man, where we confided in the wrong people. And we've heard our issues come back, man. And so, you know, it kind of puts us in a place where we want to shut down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to add one thing.
Go ahead, brother.
Said Derek, and I think Ash probably can tell us more about this. But when you said being able to just release and to breathe, and I think too often as black men, we have it's like your head on a swivel. You're trying to figure out what is it you have to react to next? What are you going to have to do? And I remember having a moment, just a casual conversation after church one time with 2 other males. And when we had that conversation, one of them said, man, I'm really glad we talked because I thought it was just me.
Well, God.
You just know how many people feel that way and are keeping it within themselves because they think they're the only one. Yeah. And so having this platform, having you guys, I think is what has helped me to be okay. Because there were times I think if I had to do it, and y'all know I would send a text, I was like, I need y'all prayers. Because if you have to do that thing by yourself and you don't feel that you have anybody, you don't have anyone who you can kind of release to. And I say this because I don't want our wives to think a certain way.
Yes,
of course we have them.
Yes, sir.
But being able to talk to another man about something is completely different.
Completely different.
Because there's some things we experience that nobody else is going to understand. They're not going to understand that. And so having that particular freedom to be able to have those discussions is a good thing.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Ash.
And I think like the piggyback back off what B just said, it is important sometimes that you have someone who understands, because I mean the ladies have that too. You know what I'm saying? It's certain things they talk about that we have no godly idea what you know, don't get me wrong, we sit there and be like, okay, but we have no godly idea what that feels like. So so it's some things that we as men we go through that we could be able to share. And sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm the only one going through this. But when you really honestly have a group of brothers that you can talk to, you find out that it's common for all of us. And at some point in time, all of us have felt like we're overwhelmed. All of us have felt like we've been underappreciated. So we don't felt like we, you know, at some point in time, it felt like, you're invisible, but you're the biggest person in the room. But so you have to, but it's good that we able to talk to one another, that you know you're not by yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're not by yourself, as well as sometimes it's just to be able to, like you said, Derek, just to be able to breathe sometimes. And just being able to say it. You see what I'm saying? We all be in certain settings that I can't do this here. You know what I'm saying? On the job, you can't do these certain things. You know what I'm saying? So you're not afforded that because that's not what you paid to do. You know what I'm saying? So and being in the occupation that I'm in, you're training everything else is on to the next. It's on to the next. I ain't got time. Yeah, you deal with that, but you got to get on to the next thing. So that gets built in after years of doing that, as well as being a man, head of household and everything else. You know, I put it this way. I saw a video of TikTok where it was funny, but it made a whole lot of sense. It showed the wife eating, and she just having a good time eating. And she said, "I can eat like this because I know my husband's watching the door." You feel what I'm saying? They're afforded, you know, and as well as our families are afforded certain luxuries because we on guard. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that sometimes we can't afford to come off the wall. We can't afford to be lackadaisical because I got to be the one watching. You know what I'm saying? Financially, you got to make sure that certain things are gonna get taken care of. When everybody else can be like, hey, I can just spend that, but I'm taught to be prepared for the rainy days and everything else. So a lot of that is the weight of manhood that only other men gonna understand. You see what I'm saying? Only another brother who knows is gonna know what I'm talking about when I say I don't sit with my back to the wall. My wife knows to go anywhere to eat. As soon as we come inside, she already knows but Richard ain't sitting with his back to the door. That's with nobody. I'm not, because that's how I'm programmed.
That's right.
I'm a watchman on the wall, and so I gotta stay at that point. And sometimes you wish that I could just be like, I don't care, it's all good, but I can't be. I gotta stay engaged. But times like this help me stay engaged, because it do sometimes soldiers need to be able to get around other soldiers and be able to say, "Woo, man, golly,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's been tough." But you know what? All right, enough of that. You know, when we get through this, all right, hey, I got to get back on that wall again. You know what I'm saying? But it's good to have these times that we can talk and be able to understand and know, bro, you're not by yourself. Some younger brothers maybe listen to this. Nah, man, you're not by yourself. You're going to feel this way. It does happen. But you know what? You're going to get through it. You're going to push through. As Roe, he brought the scripture in, you're going to have to get to your nevertheless.
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You're going to have to get to that point where nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. So I got to get to that point. But it is tough. It is tough.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me say this, man. You said something right. Thought about this. When you read 1 Samuel 30, right? When David and his men come back and they find out that the Amalekites have invaded them, right? The Bible speaks about how David encouraged himself in the Lord. What's interesting, though, is that David's entire military arsenal was made up of men who were discredited, discontented, and discouraged, right? So he had a military arsenal of people that the others rejected, right? And so they found commonality and common ground in the same story, right? These are all men who were discredited, discouraged, or discontent, and they found collegiality and brotherhood. And if you know anything about David's story, David never lost a battle when they went to war, right? These men that were rejected, that were discouraged, that were weary, had something in common, and they fought hard together. But at a certain point, trauma became so severe that when they came back from having been rejected on one end, they come home to find that their wives and children and possessions are gone. They find themselves even looking at David because the trauma is so severe. And David, not able to bleed downward, went to what he knew best, was to go to the Lord and encourage himself in the Lord. But David wasn't exempt, and these men weren't exempt, and we aren't exempt. And everybody doesn't have covenant brothers, right? We have the blessing of having each other, whether through phone call, through text, physical gathering. We can actually be honest with each other. And so our bringing this conversation public is in hopes of being able to let a brother know, as was said earlier, man, you're not in this by yourself, right? And it's by yourself. And based on your familial structure, based on how you were raised, man, you may not have been able or allowed to be able to be honest, be real. I remember falling and busting my knee, bleeding and in pain, and being told, don't cry. Men don't cry, right? And so you hear that over a period of time, you begin to dry up those tears. And now when you start having children, right, you've never allowed your family to see you shed tears, let alone raise them to shed tears. And all of a sudden it becomes, we now get this negative connotation to the point where people are fearful. As you said something that I started laughing because my wife knows this about me. When we walk into any place of public, I'm always assessing everything in this room. And when we sit down, I've had times ask her, hey, can you scoot over? Or can we switch seats? I got to be able to see, right? Because what I'm looking at in a restaurant or in a public setting, they're not worried about, right? I want to make sure that that we can respond accordingly. I've even told her, if I say move, ask me afterwards why I said it. In the moment, just follow me, right? Let's not have a conversation on why I'm saying move. Trust me enough to know that your safety, our safety, is of utmost importance in that regard. So even in a normal setting, we're still in assessment, as you mentioned, because we are trained and prepared in that regard. I want to fade into question number 2. It's about to get really, really tense, but it's necessary to get tense. Second, the question number 2 is black man. What do you wish people knew or understood about being black in Florida, where we all live, and in America? Right, we're in times, man, where we read about on a local, state, and national level about the constant conversation as it relates to the black race in general, but also just some challenges, man. Just because we don't respond to everything we read or see doesn't mean that we don't read it or see it. Right? Just because we don't react onto everything on social media doesn't mean that we didn't read and see it. I got off Twitter and Instagram during COVID for this one reason, was because I realized I wasn't disciplined enough not to respond to foolish comments. Right? I felt it necessary to, if you say something stupid, I'm gonna respond in that moment. And I realized, hey man, for my own mental, let me get off of this, because I'm gonna be responding all day, every single day. But at the same point, I'm not going to let you speak incorrectly and not be checked, right? That was just my mindset, and I realized, hey man, it's just not in that setting. Also, because of the work that I do, right? You got to be mindful in that regard. But I will give you all a great example of something that really impacted me hard. It was during the time of the Derek Chavis case. Is, this is the officer who put his knee on the neck of George Floyd. I was in my family room watching it on TV, the whole trial. My son comes out as I'm watching. Hey, Daddy, what you watching? I said, I'm watching this trial, man. My son's exact words was, I don't know why we care. They're going to find him not guilty anyway. And he walked out the room. And I was so traumatized and conflicted by that, because my son at the time, probably 15, 16, he's now 18. He had already concluded that this is nothing but a dog and pony show. The result's going to be the result. And later on, we talked about it. And I realized that for him, it was better to assume and expect not guilty than to hope for guilty. Because if I hope for guilty and he's not found guilty, then that's one more reason for me to be upset. If I expect not guilty and they do not guilty, I can say, I told you. As we were talking through this, I realized, man, I need to better understand from his level of understanding how he feels about what's going on. So let's bring this question forth, man. What do you as people understood about being black? You could do it in Florida, you could do it in America, you could just do it in life, man. And so I'm gonna go to you first, Ash.
Well, I think the main thing for me is I wish people really understood that I'm human too.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes we have been. I can remember. I think it was LeBron James was on the cover of, I think, Vanity Fair or GQ magazine or something like that, and he was on there, and they had him posing pretty much almost like a gorilla. It looked like, I mean, honestly, it looked just like the poster for King Kong, and it was a white female next to him, and it almost looked like he should have just had her in his hand, holding on to, you know what I'm saying, like he was just on the attack. As well as we can remember when even OJ was on the cover of Time magazine, and they darkened him up. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is a lot of times we're dehumanized. We're kind of treated as human to a lot of people, where people don't think we don't hurt. We know, even when it comes down to doctors, and when it comes to we as black men, and especially our women too, our pain is not accepted the levels as others are. We expected to take more, we can do more, and me being a larger guy, a big guy, they expect that, nothing hurts you or nothing bothers you. So I think I would really hope that people will see the human side of us
Yes,
as
sir.
me as a black man, that you understand that, hey, I have feelings just like you do. I got hopes and dreams. I got fears. I might not tell you what they are, but I
Yeah.
have those same things like everyone else has.
Yeah.
And as well as a lot of things, you find out the same things you want for your family to be safe and be able to go to school and come home, and you be able to provide and protect your family. Is some of the same things everybody else wants. And I don't think that is assessed a lot of times with us as black men, because you got to think how we are portrayed. Look how we're portrayed in the media. I can tell you, watching the news, if the person gonna be look like me or not, they already got a picture of us. Somebody else, they looking for some other man, Florida man, they ain't got no picture of him. Nobody don't know what he look like. But if he got a picture, he gonna look like us. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of times, I think what I would want is for people to understand, and I wish that people understood that me as a black man, I'm human just like you. I
Yes,
have
sir.
some of the same hopes and dreams. I have some of the same fears that you have. Things bother me just like they bother you. I'm not oblivious to the things that are going on around me, nor do I things. Or sometimes people think we don't care about certain things. No, I care about some of the same things you do, but a lot of times that's not afforded to us, because we also looked at as one way. Also, you only looked at, or you can only play sports, or you can only do this, or you can only do that. So I don't like to be pigeonholed into nothing.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I,
Yes,
I,
sir.
I don't want to be. I don't want. As soon as you assume something, I promise you, I'll go another way. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be able to be afforded some of the same hopes and dreams, especially now talking about our sons and our grandkids, or whoever comes behind. I want them to be able to afforded some of the same hopes and dreams that other young kids are, especially our boys. I want them to be able to dream and hope and be able to hit those things that they want it out of their heart, and not just be looked at as one way, or they always the problem, or they all a lot of times we not asked, like B said, we not asked that young boy, why is he hurting, why is he acting out, what is going on in his life that has him to this point. Why is this young boy who ain't but 6-7 years old, why is he angry? What's going on in his life? Why is he angry? What is going on? Did anybody ever try to find out what is happening in his life, that at 6-7 years old he has so much bottled up anger because he don't know how to deal with what's probably going on in his life, and he's
Talk
not
to us.
afforded that. Why? Because he don't look like the other ones do.
Talk to us.
And since he don't look like the other ones do, he's easily put in a corner. He's easily that's cast aside. He easily labeled this. He easily let's give him some medication. He easily let's go sit in the second chance. He easily let's go and kick him out. He's easily let's go and sit in the prison. You feel what I'm saying? So,
Yes, sir.
So we want our children to be able, our boys and our men, to be human. You see what I'm saying? And someone be able to say, you know what? Hey, what's going on? And let's find out how can I help that young man out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. B, jump in, man.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything Ash just said. And I think I said it in the earlier comment about having to have our head kind of on a swivel. And things that I've experienced myself is just the constant stereotype. I wish that sometimes I had a fraction of the opportunities that I see some others have. I'm not going to say where I've seen this, but I see people who have no experience have opportunities presented to them because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and you try to overcome that. You try to look beyond that, and it's almost like starting a race. And sometimes, and this is how I feel about it, we start the race behind, and we start the race with one shoe. And so we're trying to win a race where we're set up to lose that race. And I don't think sometimes people don't understand the frustration that you have just trying to get back even. I mean,
Yeah.
not even considering getting ahead, you're just trying to get back even. And it takes a lot to be able to do that. And to sit in rooms and people think you don't deserve to be there because of the color of your skin. And not realizing you're just as credentialed, you're just as qualified, you put in the time, You have the background, you can do it, but it's just that will be the thing that I would say I think frustrates me the most. And what I found, and I've tested this, I can have on sweats, t-shirt, go into a store, and people look through me. I've also gone in a store dressed like I would be dressed going to work, and then it's, may I help you, sir? And then I've had sometimes being in an elevator or with someone else, and I could be dressed like I'm dressed to go to work, and they clutch their purse. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what do I have to look like? So
Come on
to
now.
me,
Come on now.
if it's not the clothes that scares you, it has to be my skin. And I don't like to do that kind of talking, but these are the realities. These are the things that we see. It's riding and seeing the lights flashing, and Lord, I wonder if they're coming to get me. I wonder if this is going to happen. I wonder if that is going to happen. And these are some things that some people never have to even give a second thought about. And so those would be some of the things that I wish that people understood about how I feel about being Black in America.
I love that. I love that. Ro, you leaned in. Go ahead, brother. And then Jay, you up next. Go ahead, Ro.
All right, man. I concur with Ash. I concur with Hudson, man. But if I can add something to it, man, is I don't think other races really understand our plight, man. I think they take what we've been through for granted. You know, they'll never know. Lord knows I'm grateful. Ash is law enforcement, man. So, you know, sometimes we can pick up our phone and just call him and say, Ash, hey man, how do we teach this interaction? You know, a lot of people aren't afforded that. But man, see, I have triggers. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all, man. I had two occasions, man. One was I was a 19-year-old kid in Jacksonville, inadvertently ran a red light, got pulled by some cops, wanted me to pull over. Man, by the time I pulled in the parking lot, man, I was completely surrounded by law enforcement with their hands on the trigger. And all I did was inadvertently ran a red light. The second encounter, man, was I was a 20-something-year-old kid in college, headed home to go to my pastor's funeral, and got pulled over on I-10 just past Madison, man. And the guy pulled me over, searched my entire car, didn't find anything. And his words with me was, I ain't get you this time.
Wow.
I ain't get you this time, man. So anytime, man, I get pulled over by law enforcement, man, that don't have skin that look like mine, and not necessarily meaning that the ones that look like us are any better, for the most part, except if they were like Ash. You know, you get nervous, man. And so they never understand, man, what it is to be a Black man in America that has done everything they know to do right, and it ain't good enough. You know, we used to hear this, man. You know, we gotta do twice as much to even have an opportunity, man. But what you do when you done twice as much and you still don't get that chance?
Yes, sir.
You know, and my biggest fear, man, my biggest frustration, man, if I could be honest, is, man, I'm afraid for my kids. Man, if we look at how society is going, if we look at the government political climate, if we just look at who they putting in office, man, you know, we never would imagine that somebody, and I ain't trying to go down this vein, who would have done what they did on January 6th would still be eligible to sit in the highest office in this country. But a man that did it right was ridiculed for 8 years. Man, that has me afraid for what my children are gonna have to deal with, man, in the next coming years. And so, you know, I'm training my 15-year-old kid, man, who's 6'2", 180 something pounds. Son, pull your hood off. Son,
Yes,
look like this.
Yes,
Son,
sir.
do this. You don't want to get
Yes,
him
sir.
any triggers, man. That
Yes, sir.
I'm afraid to even let
Yes,
him go
sir.
anywhere, because I'm afraid he ain't gonna come home and he doing what he's supposed to do.
Yes, sir. Yes,
You know,
sir.
so those are the things, man, that people don't understand. And sometimes, you know, our wives don't even get it, man, that we're trying to raise Black men in a society that already has a strike against them, and trying to, you know, do it the best way we can. And sometimes it come off hard, sometimes it come off wrong. But I'm at a point, man, I'd rather chastise my child than to let them get put in the system.
Yes, sir.
And so,
Yes, sir.
you know, so that's man, that's my biggest frustration. That's my biggest fear, man. Man, what do my kids have to look forward to?
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
let me just say to the audience that what Ro just mentioned is on segue into our third question. So I'm actually glad you brought it up, man. And I think that's critically important. We're going to expound upon that. But Jay, jump on in, man. Give your commentary on that second question.
Absolutely, man. I won't say anything about the law enforcement piece because Ro just, man, you just nailed that, man. I think for all of us because that is a fear of all of ours. I got 3 boys, and so man, I tell them, Ash, you know, look, you get pulled over at night, you know, turn your dome light on. There's a lot of little things that we have to do to just show that we don't have anything to hide. If it's at night, you know, instead of having your registration in your glove box, put it up top so you can just pull it from right up here in your visor. You ain't got to reach over. I mean, so man, it's and that's trauma, man. That's trauma. Yeah. But let me speak to this. You know what I want people to understand. I think Ash said it too, man. All you guys have been just spoke just so eloquent about all of this, man. But I echo, I think what Bernard said, that we're human, man. And that's the first thing for me. And the second thing is that listen, I feel like cussing, but we don't want nothing that you got.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Hey, Jay, please let me say, and if I wanted your purse, you ain't finna stop me.
Right.
Come on, brother. My God.
We don't want nothing you got.
Please.
You know, I mean, and man, I mean, it's frustrating, bro. Man, I mean, man, we're pastors, man, entrepreneurs, fathers, husbands, man, community leaders, bro. None of that matter. And here's the next thing. There's a well-known saying that a lot of us, I said it before too. And that saying is this, Bernard, you know, don't walk around or quit acting like somebody owe you something, right? And I get it, and I know what they're trying to say, you know, when people say that, because I've said it too. But man, one morning I was listening to ET, I was listening to Eric Thomas, and he said that Black people built this country. This country was built on the backs of Black people for free. And he's and our ancestors never got to die. And so, man, so they do owe us something. When you really look at it, they didn't pay our ancestors, so they got to pay us. And so now, and when I say pay me, I'm not suggesting that they give it to us for free, but I think Ash said it. But we want the same opportunities that are given to other races, man. I mean, and so listen, man, I'm a Black farmer, and bro, it is hard, man. It's difficult, you know. And so, man, you don't have the help, and it is an industry that is dominated by whites, and a lot of them, they don't even want to see you coming. Man, listen, if I think, you know, prayerfully we'll be harvesting grass, man, in June of this summer, you know, God's will. But I think I may be the only Black sod farmer, man, in this area. It is. And so there are certain areas, man, that are dominated by them. And so, man, if they can make it harder for you, they do. But that's all we want, man. We just want other opportunities, man, that are the same opportunities that are given everybody else. That's it. And I'll stop there.
Let me speak to something that was said earlier, man, that I think is so critically important. When Ash said, if I did want your purse, you couldn't stop me anyway. I think I wish people that are not Black realize that you're clutching your purse because you're scared of me. What makes you think I'm not scared of you? Because here's the fact of the matter. You're more of a threat to me than I am of you. In any scenario, I start out guilty. Rose said it earlier, you training your 15-year-old son because he has 1 strike against him. I would challenge that and say he has 2 strikes against him because he's Black and he's a Black male. And in some people's mind, those 2 things right there by themselves are scary. You have a 15-year-old. Jay has 3 adult young men's son. Ash has 1 son. I have an 18-year-old who's getting ready to graduate from high school in May and going to college. And Bernard has a daughter. But here's what I find myself, I've had those conversations. He has a car now, right? He goes places. I always say, buddy, be safe. I always tell my son this: the one goal when you leave this house is what? And he responds back by saying, make it home safely. So we can respond to everything else after that. But I need you to get home safely. I need you to get home safely. I need you, as you mentioned, Jay, don't have your registration too far where you got to be reaching too far to give any suspicion, right? My son likes to wear, right? Keep your hands clear when you go into a department store, right? My son has one of the best smiles you'll ever see. But my son's also a football player, right? He's a muscular football player. No matter how wonderful his smile is, his physical physique is going to scare somebody. He's done nothing wrong. Just his appearance by himself is going to be a threat to people. You share that because in the reality of it all is, as B said earlier, you can do everything right and still be seen as wrong. And so in those scenarios, I wish people understood that the same way you hurt, you bleed, I also hurt, I also bleed. It is hard sometimes to converse with your children and try to get them to understand it's going to get better when they're living in a situation that's not better right now, right? When they don't see things the way they see things. I'm gonna give you guys a quick story. My son, as I mentioned, graduates in May. My son was in middle school playing football on his school's middle school team. He was playing defensive end. He tackled a young boy in I'm gonna mention in Wakulla County. He's playing Wakulla County middle school game. Tackled the quarterback. He got a sack. Right, the little young man felt like my son was too aggressive. It was a normal football sack. The young man gets up, throw the ball at my sons, and call him a nigger. The white hat official is a black man. My son gets up. I'm in the stands. I don't know what has been said. I just can tell based on his reaction, something has transpired that he's just snapped, and he is going ballistic. So as a father, I assess the situation. I'm getting ready to come down the bleachers to figure out what's going on, and his reaction wasn't to what the quarterback said. I noticed he's yelling at the official. Now, we raise our children to respect adults, right? So I'm noticing my son is way more animated than he needs to be. And he's like coaches out there trying to pull him back. He's outrageous, which is also not his character. They finally get him to the sideline. I come down to the fence. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. At the end of the game, he is still emotional about what transpired. I mean, he's ballistically upset. And I said, man, what happened? What is going on? He said, Daddy, I sacked that boy. I said, I saw. He said, he called me a nigger. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He said, I turned to the official and said, man, you heard that. And the black official turned around to my son and said, man, suck it up and move on. And my son lost it because he's thinking if anybody is going to defend me, is going to respond, it should be you. And he could not handle what transpired. On that ride home, our son cried the entire ride home. I'm getting emotional thinking about it because he just couldn't process how a adult black man's response to a young black man being called a nigger, and he heard it be said, his response was, man, just suck it up and move on. And this was my son. My son, like, Daddy, why do I have to suck it up? Like, why is that okay? And my son's go after that, he said, Daddy, it was the way the quarterback said it. He said it was so much anger toward me as if he said it before. And when I think about those situations, that scenario, I always think about that, man, because not only is it traumatic, my son is now being told and taught to let it go and with no explanation. And so when we talk about we hurt, we bleed, we suffer, man, the reality of it all, brother, is as mentioned, man, we also have fears. I may not divulge them, but we have fears. And I want to allow what Rose said and what I just shared to jump us right into question number 3, man, because I want to respect time, but I also want to go right there because I feel that we need to go to question number 3, right? And question number 3 is, what concerns do you have for your black children? And Rose, you began talking about it, right? The political structure, about the society and all. I will tell you, man, you know, I never knew fear or concern. I don't even say the word worry until my wife and I blessed our son with a car Christmas of 2022. And I never knew fear until January of 23 when he and his sister went back after the Christmas break and they pulled out of our driveway to go to school. And you realize both of your kids are in this car. And he's a really good driver, but he's a young driver, right? And just the thought of Lord, I can't go with these kids. Please keep your hand on these children. Right? You think about that type of stuff. So now I'm monitoring an app and I'm texting him and telling him, you get school, make sure you text her. The thought of your babies now being released into the world, right? There is a fear that comes with that, right? And you know, as a parent, that they're going to experience things that even if you prepare them for it, you can't protect them from it. And so, Ro, I'm gonna go back to you, man, because you started this whole part on this one here about the concern. I want to give you a chance, man, in case you want to expound upon what you were saying.
Yeah.
And then Jay, I'm gonna go to you next, bro.
Okay, man. Like, you know, the jump back into it, man. I want to piggyback what you just said, man, because I want the listeners to know not only are we concerned about our black sons, but man, we just as concerned about our black daughters. I have a newly 21-year-old man that's in school, doing great, has a job, man. But my biggest fear happened, man, her freshman year in college. She's living on campus, and you know, we've had a conversation with her. You know, we want you to experience the college life. We don't want you to, you know, feel that just because you've been brought up in the church, you can't have fun. And so, man, it's 2:00 on a Sunday morning, and my phone rang, the house phone. And so if you call my house phone at 2:00, I know something wrong, you know. So I pick up the phone. She's frantic. She's yelling. They shooting, Dad. And so in my mind, I'm like, where you at? You know, I'm about to go to my safe.
Yes, sir.
And make my way to Tallahassee, you know. And so I say that to say, man, as much as we raise our kids to do right, man, we can't protect them from everything, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The only way we can keep them from any harm is to keep them in the house 24/7, which would not give room for growth, would not give room for experience. And so, you know, I'm afraid that really, man, our society, our country is going in reverse. And I think our kids are going to have to deal with a level of blatant, outright racism that we never dealt with. You know, and I'm talking from experience, man. My mom was the first Black homecoming queen for my high school in 1971. My dad is the first Black class to graduate from my high school in 1971. Man, that's only 53 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And I think that we had so much advancement in these last 50 years, man, that as a people, we became comfortable. We became content that we were on the same playing field. And Jay said it, man, sometimes I want to cuss because I can't understand how people that look like us, have skin like us, can support people that blatantly want to harm us. And as a race, as a pastor, as a 6'6" Black man in America, I can't get mad. Because if I get mad, I'm getting handcuffs put on me. If I get agitated and aggravated, I'm now labeled the angry Black male. And so, you know, I'm afraid, man, that our kids, man, if things don't change, man, they're gonna have to deal with stuff we never had to deal with.
My God.
And so I'm praying that things will get better.
My God.
And I'll leave it at that, man, because you know I'll go into Peter real quick on this subject, Doc.
Jay, man, why don't you jump in, bro?
Yep. Hey, man, for sure, bro. We're fathers first, man. And I mean, man, I'm very protective over my kids. Man, I lay hands on them every day before they leave the house. Pray over them. That's just not being religious, super spiritual, man, but it's necessary, bro. And I know that, you know, in the midst of this frustration, you know, we have to also remember the Father.
Yes, sir.
That we gotta, you know, we gotta trust God, man, to cover our children outside of our sight. But man, it's trauma, man. It's frustrating that they have to, you know, navigate, you know, in a country where they are judged, and that was my biggest fear. I wrote that they'll be judged, man. For our white brothers and sisters, man, their skin is their shield.
Mm.
And for us, our skin is our sin.
Mm.
So that alone, man, can be frustrating, bro. But I think, you know, we have to pray over them, that God will cover them, man. And then we have to prepare them. Like I alluded to earlier. I teach my boys, man. Look, you get pulled over first. I said, you know, call me on the speaker. You know, call me first so that they'll know you're having a conversation with your dad. Because again, it is assumed. I saw that quote there that you put down there, that statistic, I believe, man. It is assumed that most black boys, man, don't have fathers. That, you know, that they're just kind of out navigating through life, you know, by themselves, man. But man, we are active, we're engaged, and man, we're very, very supportive of our children, man. So that's a fear of mine. And then there's another thing I want to say. This, I don't know if this kind of fits here. I don't want to get off, but there's a documentary, man. If you guys get a chance, and I hadn't had a chance to watch it with my boys yet because we kind of all been kind of running and busy, but we're gonna sit down together and watch it together. But man, there's a documentary on Prime Video. And we all love sports. Derek, your boy's in the sports and he's doing extremely well. My son, you know, plays sports as well, man. But it's a documentary on black boys, and one of the things that they suggest that some black boys in that, but I, you know, only think that they could do things with their bodies, and how the world, that America, man, is obsessed with black bodies. I mean, man, it talks about how it starts out young, and so for some boys, when they grow up, they feel like they can't do anything else. You know, and so a lot of cats go to the NFL, go to the NBA, and then, man, when that doesn't happen, man, you know, it's like they're crushed, like they can't do anything else. And so, man, I think we have to kind of help them kind of navigate and kind of give them a blueprint on you know, everybody's not going to college, you know. I mean, so they got to be able to take trades, man. We got to also look at entrepreneurship, so that, man, they'll be able to survive. And then if all else fails, listen, let's all just get on the plane and move to Ghana. Y'all with it? let's go back home. Because how it's looking, man, we got to get out of here, man. But man, I think preparing them, man, and praying for them, I think, man, that'll kind of give us, man, just a sense of peace. I'll stop there. Yeah.
It's on you, B.
You know, so my daughter is very strong-willed, and I think the thing that scares me the most is being strong-willed. Sometimes that can be misunderstood by others, because it can sometimes come across as being aggressive or being arrogant, but really what she is confident in who she is.
My God.
So we're always trying to help her to understand that this world isn't fair. This world doesn't owe you anything. And you have to really, and it's sad, we have to say, you need to be careful. You need to watch how you say this. You need to watch how you, and everything is guarded. I mean, and and in being so guarded, sometimes you don't come across in your fullest potential because you're so worried about who you're going to offend or who's going to misunderstand what you're doing. And to let her know also that, you know, the world doesn't owe, they don't owe you anything. And as a matter of fact, they're going to take everything from you that they can. And so you have to really face it. And to be honest, and we don't like to talk about it, but the racism, as Ro mentioned earlier, is so blatant now that people will say things and do things and know it's offensive, and then gonna look at you like, what you gonna do?
Yeah.
But the moment you try to defend yourself, then now you're the angry person in the room. Now you're the aggressive person in the room. Now you're the person in the room that's always making things about race. Well, I didn't, you did.
Yeah, come on now.
You said it first. You went there first. And so it's something. It's really scary. I mean, and I'm not just talking about, you know, the things that we hear now with all this gun violence. You know, they want to tie that back to all of our communities. And the question I would pose is, but what made us this way? sometimes when we feel there's no, and I'm not making an excuse, so I don't want anybody to understand, don't anybody to think that. Sometimes when our people, young people who are coming up, feel that there is no other way out, they don't have in front of them the picture of somebody who made it out of the hood. They don't have in front of them the picture of somebody who made their money without going on the corner to get it. And so that's all they know. And I'm a living witness that even with people who go into the system, come out of the system, and they want to do it the right way, because the way society is set up, it's actually set up to hold them down, to hold them back. And I've seen people become frustrated. I've seen them become dejected, and I've seen them resort back to the same things that put them into the system of incarceration. And I was talking to my wife the other day, and that's why we end up with such a high rate of recidivism, because they don't have any options. Even if they come out and they want to do it right, there's so many things that are stacked against them, and we don't realize that it's a system that's stacked against them, that's meant to keep them from coming out and from encourage and from making it. And these are the things that I try to tell my daughter. I said, don't get yourself into something we can't get you out of.
Oh my God.
That's probably the biggest fear that I have, because she is strong-willed. My fear is she's going to say something or do something that'll get her into a situation that her mom and I can't get us out of. That is what is really scary. And somebody is waiting for her to step in the trap. And that's what I try to encourage all of these young people that I come across. Don't step in the trap. If they want to do something to you, you let them find their own ways of doing it. But don't you give them what they need in order to be able to do it to you.
That's good. Ash, it's on you, bro.
I've been sitting there thinking, and the Lord has blessed me where my wife and I, all three of our kids are adults now, and I think the thing that concerns me the most is with our children is, will they be hurt by people that look just like them?
My God.
And I hear, understand everything we're saying, which is true. But what scares me the most now is we have a generation of youth that don't know God, don't have no clue. It's like stuff we're talking about to some of them is totally foreign, you know what I'm saying, on how we just treat one another. And and as well as I put it like this here. I can remember seeing D, you can answer to this. You know, the people will want to go take pictures by the mural in LA of Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
And you can have people from Japan, people from China, people that don't look like you, go in those areas, take a picture and keep it moving. But if I went in there or you went in there, we getting checked. So you mean to tell me it's folks from the outside can come and do this, but I'm seen as a threat. And as well as, and we have to be careful, because we are now turning our children into a world where it's almost, it's godless. It's no one cares about either one anymore. Our children are killing each other at rapid rates. You know what I'm saying? We're doing a far greater job of killing each other more than what the other folks are doing. And we have to get our kids. Now we're telling our kids to be one way. I trained my son the same way my dad trained me. There was no exception, no rule for me to ever put my hands on a woman. None. Come up with whatever scenario you want to come up with. It is never allowed. I taught my son the same thing. Never put your hands on a woman. Now women beating up on men now.
Come on, sir.
You know what I'm saying? It's to a point, and as well as so much things are going on that and it's just my opinion, and it's kind of heavy on me. We're totally out of sync. You know what I'm saying? We're totally out of sync. Our daughters acting more like boys, and our sons acting more like the daughters or something. We're not preparing them for really this world that's gonna chew them up and spit them out. They coming in like B said, you're already in a race where you got one shoe and you already behind. You see what I'm saying? And if you're not careful, what are we preparing our kids to go to? You know, I have 2 daughters. I want them to be wives. But at the same time, are we training any sons to be husbands anymore?
My
You know what
God.
I'm saying? You look online, everybody talking about stuff that is like foreign to me. I was taught if you took a young lady out, you took care of the bill because you're the man. Now these dudes expect these girls to take them to the Jamaica or something. I'm like, what did you what did you do to deserve that? You
Talk,
know what I'm
sir.
saying? You know what I'm saying? So my point in all that is, what I'm saying is, yes, the certain aspect of law enforcement that we have to teach our kids how to conduct themselves, and I work in it, so I understand it, and I wish sometimes people. It was a video that I hope y'all saw it, where the young man was out in the thing, and the officer was approaching him, and he told him, you know, do you have a gun on you? And he was like, no. And when he walked up on him, the young man stuck his hand down in his pants. And by the time he did, the officer already had to have his gun out. And just that quick, when he got the young man cuffed, went in his waistband, what was in there? The gun. Our kids now are being raised so much where they think the only way that we can make it, or only way that they can do it, is, you best believe, you have to teach your kids, don't argue with these kids no more, because it's no more fighting anymore. There is no more fighting.
Yeah.
There is no more fighting. There is no more standing around like we used to do, and we're gonna watch the fight. No, you better get from around here, because I'm telling you, if they get to a point, all these Jones got a switch on them. All of them got, and it's bad because now, like Rose said, you know, you got a daughter, you got sons that you want to be able to not, you know, just crowd them and just say, okay, I'm just gonna hold them here. You can't do that. But at the same time, it's scary out here because you know what, my son or my daughter may encounter somebody who don't care nothing about life, has no concern whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? And as well as, because there's no concern about God anymore. There's no more teaching of the value of life. And we're not careful. We look like we chewing on it, and we eating it more than anybody else right now. And maybe that's on me. Maybe because it's been the profession I work in. But it look like to me, we the ones eating up. You know, we pride ourselves on, I came from the toughest hood, and I don't take nothing. I'm standing on business, and I'm doing all that. When that junk leads nothing but to destruction, it's only gonna lead for somebody else being dead or you stuck in prison for your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're nearing the point of our show. We're nearing the end, but we want to give a chance for audience participation. And brothers, we got a question from Miss Junine Morris, and I want to put it on the screen so you're able to see it. And anybody who wants to respond, they can. Her question is, do you have any suggestions on how we can turn this conversation into actionable steps for the community? So I think is an amazing question, and thank you so much for submitting that question. I want to open it up to us. Anybody want to respond to the question from Ms. Morris? Go ahead, Ro.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead. I'll go next. Go ahead.
One of the things I think that we can turn this into an actionable steps is, man, we all got to get on the same page. We got to make sure that our help is not to be in the spotlight.
My God.
Delwyn Williams gave me some advice, man, right after the Trayvon Martin case. And I was angry. I was wanting to jump into social justice, and that ain't even my lane. And he said, we got to have men on the front line, but then we got to have men at the table. And so we've got to make sure that we understand our role in this fight. We got to make sure we understand, you know, that our voices are respected. Derek, you said it key, man. We can't always respond to everything, but we got to make sure when we respond that we're relevant.
Yes, sir. There it is.
And so we don't want to lose our relevance in our community. And I think we all have to sit down to the table, put our egos to the side, put who's going to be the chief to the side, and really strategize how do we improve on these things that are going on in our country. And I think, to be honest with you, and Derek, man, you bless me with this, man, and I just watch you from a distance. Man, we got to be able to engage everybody. because it's going to take more than people that look like us to right this ship. And so
Yes,
we
sir.
got to make sure that we know how to engage, we know how to strategize. And truth be told, man, we just got to all get on the same page with this. So I turn over to you, Jay. That's just kind of what I wanted to add to that question.
No, man, that's great stuff, bro. Real good. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the problems also. And you know, Ash talked about how there's no reverence of God. Scripture says this, and there arose a generation,
Mm.
and there arose an entire generation who did not know the Lord, nor the works that He had did for their forefathers. And man, I think that that's kind of where we at, man. But I think that some of the problem is that this generation they have zero relationship with God. Man, as Ash said, man, everybody got a gun, man. Violence is a major problem. Anger issues, alcoholism, and let me just say this, and I hope Derek, I hope you give us an opportunity, man, to because I know the bonus question was, what do we
Yeah,
want
I'm
to
gonna
say
bring it
to
up. Yes,
the
sir.
other black men?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
man, I want to say something to that. But man, alcoholism, and let me just say this, man, there ain't no other way to say it. Black people drink too much liquor. Period. We drink too much, man. Man, I'm just tired of saying party, bro. I mean, it's a party every weekend. It's like I'm like, hell, can y'all do something else other than party? Can we get together, man, and empower each other? I mean, it's like, man,
Yes,
that's
sir.
all. You got a party. You got a party every week. Let me just move on. But anyway, man, anger issue, alcoholism,
Yes, sir.
drugs,
Yes,
man,
sir.
and our kids now, our kids are dealing with alcoholism because they drink it with their parents and their uncles and their aunties, drugs, weed, edibles, man. Our kids are dealing with this, man. Identity issues, they don't know who they are. They have no respect for life, man. Poverty leads to mental health. I talked to my own sons, and one of my sons told me that sometimes, Dad, I feel lonely. So this generation feel lonely in a house with people in the house with them, man. They still feel lonely. So they're dealing with, man, more than they can handle. Some of them dealing with depression, panic attacks, anxiety, man, a lot of that. And so to Ms. Morris' question, some of the solution, I think, man, we got to be intentional about who we're actually trying to reach. Man, I think that our young people need a safe place, bro. A safe place, again, is this: an emotional place of support without judgment. Man, I'm very particular with the type of sermons I preach now, man. Particularly when I'm preaching to youth. Because, man, for so long, man, the church has just threw the book at them, judged them, and people, they don't want to be around that. I also think we got to connect them with resources on site and help them to become more independent, man. Help them to be able to navigate through life, man, on their own. And then I also think that we got to provide resources for parents. I'm working on something right now, man, for the summer that I'm doing for our youth, and in this event that we're doing, I'm going to have a piece where I'm going to have a class entitled "Understanding My Kids" for parents only.
Oh,
So that
God.
we can kind of help parents, man, because a lot of parents, man, they don't understand their kids. So again, man, I think giving people and praying is good. We got to do that. We got to have the spiritual peace, but I also think, man, we got to really have conversations, man, and give people resources and connect them with resources so that things can really change. Then I stop there, bro.
Let me touch Miss Moore's question, and then I wanna start bringing us in for a landing. And where we're gonna land the show tonight is there was a bonus question that audience that I gave to the brothers that I had it there solely if we did not have any questions from the audience. But I think it's befitting to end with that question. And so how we're going to end is I'm gonna give each of the brothers a chance in their closing to respond to that question. I'm always going to be respectful of everybody's time. Allow me once again to thank you all, our viewing audience, for being a part of this conversation, for being loyal supporters of the Conversation with the Covenant Brothers. We are 5 Black men who also pastor, who are also husbands, who are also fathers. 2 of them on here are grandfathers now. But to add to that, we have conversations that are not always about pulpit, right? We have conversations about life, right? We share in a confidential space amongst each other our real reactions to things that we are seeing, right? In those conversations, and our reactions aren't always, let's go find a scripture to give us consolation. There are times when we really do vent about our anger to these things because it is beyond frustrating. It is beyond frustrating. Now, Ms. Morris asked a question that I really want to touch on. And in asking that question, my dear sister, my response to that, Roosevelt said, fitting when he said that he spoke about, social justice in that regard and knowing our lane. Let me say this to everyone who is listening. Just because your pastor is not engaging in protest, because your pastor is not walking amongst the crowd that's protesting, does not mean that your pastor is not aware, nor your pastor isn't concerned. Pastor Philip Pointer Sr. said it this way. He says social justice is spiritual, right? And so just because we don't respond to social justice matters everything doesn't mean that we're not aware of it. I don't make it my habit to get into a public spat with any clergy who tries to call out pastors because they say we ain't doing enough. You don't know what I'm doing, right? Just because I don't put what I'm doing on social media don't mean I ain't doing nothing. Hear me loud and clear now. There are things that you can't win a city if you don't win a community first. And I think there are a lot of times we're trying to win the city and we hadn't even won the block we're on, right? People on the block don't even know who you are. Years ago, the Lord asked a question of me in prayer, which became the motivation for our church. And the question was, if Bible-based church burned down tomorrow, would anyone in this community know you ever existed? That became our clarion call to try to win the south side of Tallahassee that we're on first. It's enough churches on the north side of town. That's somebody else's responsibility. Right now, my responsibility is to try to win on that side of town. There are Title I schools that surround my church. We're trying to be involved as much as possible. One day, I got in my car and I just went riding one day from my church to the Title I school, Oak Ridge Elementary School, and see how many churches that I counted. In a circle, I counted at least 13 churches, Black churches, from where my church is in a circle to where that school is. Now, I point this out not to bash any churches, but to point out we don't have a shortage of churches. That's not the issue. That's not the issue, right? What the shortage is direct, intentional investment and engagement in partnership with these schools. It is easy for me to go on social media and blast everything that I see. It's easy to do that. But my motto for my business and my motto for life is make moves, not announcements. You don't have to promote and announce what you're doing. Just do the work, right? If you do the work will impact the lives. And so to the question of my sister, Ms. Morris, your question, I'm going to tell you the thing that we don't do enough of, which is where I make my profession at. We don't do enough of getting involved in public policy. Right? We can go on social media. We can vent about everything we see. We can read about things. We can talk about things. We can do things in that regard. But what we don't talk about is public policy. Let me educate the audience real quickly. This is important. Greg James, years ago, said the fight is from the pulpit to the pavement. And I agreed with Greg on that. And I said, well, Greg, it also is from the pulpit to the pavement, right? But also from the pavement to the public policy. And here's why. You can spend time talking about the presidential race. You can spend time talking about the gubernatorial race, and you ought to educate yourself on those things and on the mayoral races. But let me say something to you. Not a president, nor a governor, nor a mayor has ever passed a bill. That's Congress. That's the legislature. That's your city and county commission. And most times we are not visibly educated nor present in those engagements. Let's use Tallahassee, for example. If you look at Jacksonville, Florida, where Roe is from a strong mayoral city, right? Where that mayor has a lot of power in that regard. Tallahassee is known as being a weak mayoral system. Now, what does that mean? not calling our mayor weak. What I'm saying is the mayor's vote in Tallahassee is equal to the commissioner's votes, right? In Jacksonville, that mayor is elected as a mayor, right? He works with that city council, but it's seen differently. Now, why do I say that to you? When you have a weak mayoral system by way of government in general, then the power lies aggressively with that city manager, right? So if that city manager and that mayor work well together, you never know anything about this. If they don't work well together, and you realize you may be fighting the mayor and be mad at the mayor. The fact of the matter may be the city, it may be a city manager who actually is in that regard. In Leon County, in city of Tallahassee, the police chief reports up through the city manager's office, not to the city council, right? And so when things happen in our community and we're not seeing a swift response from the police chief and people are getting upset, you got to understand the org chart. Whereas with our Leon County Sheriff, Walt McNeil, he's a he's elected by the electorate. So he can go right to the camera and tell us what's going on. What am I saying in that regard? When we don't educate ourselves on public policy, the belief by non-Black populations of people is, if you want to get over on Black people, put it in a book. They ain't gonna read it. That's always been the narrative about us, is that we don't like to read nothing, especially if they don't have pages involved in it. I share that with you, brothers and sisters, because when you read about what's going on, when you see these bills that are getting filed, when you see these things that are going on, the best way you combat these things is you got to also vote. You got to vote, because if you do not vote, it's not fair for you to complain and you ain't voting. Public policy is a major, major, major impact. Rose said it earlier, and I share with that. My fear is the future my children gonna have in our state and in our country, and here is why. Because either they're so disinterested because they feel like set up against me, number one, or because I see what's happening and I know it takes years to undo what is being done. And so for us, right, it's important. I've been in a lot of settings with a lot of clergy with a lot of great ideas, and we never get off the firing squad. And here is why. Because the argument goes from a great idea to, well, who are we gonna do? We're gonna do the press conference at. Who gonna be standing in front of the microphone? Who gonna get a chance to speak? Why he gonna speak? Well, if he come, I ain't coming. If she come, I ain't coming. So all of a sudden now, egos has killed a great idea, or a great idea, but I ain't gonna support that idea, right? Or we start competing. He got a great idea. Now let me start do the same exact thing. So now I'm gonna split us. Think about the electorate in Leon, in this area here. Every time the House seat opens up in this area, we have 4 or 5 people running for that same seat. What ends up happening is you split the vote. Instead of us getting behind a person and saying, hey, listen, we're going to ride with you, going to hold you accountable, going to help you raise money. Now it's a big war going on in that regard. Be in any clergy room, you get enough time, you're going to hear clergy bickering about other clergy. The parishioners are not going to ride with that idea. They pastor don't like the other pastor. How is it that we are believers of Jesus Christ and we can't be in the same room together and get anything done? This conversation is proof that 5 Black men can get in a room together and actually have a conversation, not be at war with each other. Our wives get along with each other, as you guys saw last month. But we don't get involved in public policy. If we don't start reading these city ordinances and start reading the statutes and reading these bills that are getting filed and reading what's going on, we're going to always find ourselves reacting years later. And that's what my concern comes in at, is that when you see things, right, the thing that the laws are written, you look at some of these amendments on the ballot, people get frustrated because you can't read it. It's not designed for you to comprehend. It's designed for you to either get frustrated and not vote at all or vote incorrectly because we don't educate ourselves. So last cycle, God gave me a vision. I did a virtual meeting with my church, and I walked them through every part of the ballot. Here's what's on the ballot. Here's their platform. Walked them all the way down through it. And here's why I did that. Because I have a responsibility to make sure that the people that I pastor are educated on who's on the ballot. I didn't tell them who to vote for, but I want them to know this is who's running. This is their platform. This is what they believe in. Here's their website. It took a long time to do it, but it's necessary because where I grew up, the hope in my community was that Black church. If you want to run for office, you had to come to my church to run for office. You couldn't just run for office. You had to come talk to my pastor. He came to our congregation. And the belief was if pastor put him or her in front of us, then Pastor believes that him or her is at least worth a conversation, at least worth the conversation or consideration. Let me go a little bit further in this, and I'm going to wrap this up with that question, is Black people, we got to also get more involved in our school board meetings. Know who your school board member is. Know what their platform is. Know what's going on at those schools. Our area is represented by Daryl Jones. I've known Daryl Jones a long time. Daryl Jones has a lot of Title I schools in his district. My brother Marcus Nicholas, another great one on the school board. Here's why I'm giving this up to you, because a lot of times we don't engage in local. My motto is simple. National politics irritate me. Local politics impact me. I'm frustrated about what's going on in Washington. But what affects me is what's going on in City Hall, what's going on at that school board meeting, right? Those are the things that impact my everyday life. And a lot of times I ignore those things because I'm more worried about Trump and Biden. I want to be aware of that. But if I don't pay attention to what the city commission is arguing about, if I don't go to a school board meeting and hear what's going on, if I don't engage in PTA and PTSA meetings at my child's school, if I don't engage in that regard, anything could be happening and I'm going to be late in responding to it. I got emotional because for me, I get frustrated with my people when we automatically assume, and they trying to hear me. Listen, bro, listen, everything we've been able to do in our country as the Black people was done because somebody said, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep propelling. I tell my son, you are an amazing athlete. You have amazing stat, but bro, you are a student athlete. My son is an honor roll student. Don't let nobody negate that fact that you worked hard to get to where you are, but you are an educated Black man, as is my daughter. I say that to all of us because the fight should not be us against each other. The fight should be us together against whoever comes against us. And a lot of times, as Ash said, we're killing our own selves. We're fighting our own self, matter our own self. We hate on each other more than anybody else. And that should not be the narrative. That should not be the narrative. That should not be the narrative. Listen now, I want to take us to our last question. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to give everyone, the brothers, a chance to give their closing comments. Here was the bonus question that I sent to them. It was, Black man, what do you want to say to other Black men? And so we're going to let each of my brothers give their closing comments and address this question. Go based on my screen. So B, I'm going to you first, bro. We're going to go across the screen as I see it.
So what I would say is you're not alone in this. I think it's vital that you find someone that you can talk to, someone that you can relate to, and it's okay to open up. I think that's the biggest problem we have. I think Ash alluded to it earlier. We're taught to suck it up. We're taught to get over it. We're taught to keep it moving. But you have to have that opportunity to be able to open up. You need to be able to talk with somebody. And get you somebody who's going to challenge you, get you somebody who's going to push you, get you something. And I think Julius said it, and he said it being funny, but you know, it ain't all about drinking and smoking and partying all the time. You need to get somebody who's going to push you into an area where you know you need to go. If you're going to be with someone and nothing they're going to do is going to challenge you, you with the wrong group. You need to be with someone who's going to challenge you to be better, who's going to challenge you to do better, and you'll find out that it works out for you. It works out in the long run. So get you a accountability partner, somebody who's going to hold you accountable, somebody who's going to push you, and get you a therapist if you need one. Get you some kind of support group. Get you somebody that you can let go to, somebody that you can vent to, somebody that's not going to judge you, that you can talk about those difficult things that you're going to have to deal with, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make it and move forward without losing it. Because if you don't have those opportunities, what that does is it creates that volcano that Derek mentioned earlier, and it's just going to build and it's going to build and it's going to build, and then what you become is what they stereotype you to be. So that's what I have.
Thank you, bro. Ro, it's on you, man.
All right, man. I'm gonna give 5 quick things, man, and
Yes,
I'm gonna be done. The first thing, man, is Julius alluded to it, man. Find Christ. We need Christ in our lives. Find you a safe circle. Find you a counselor. Find your purpose and commit to it, and don't stop covering your family. And the last thing I'll say, man, to the brothers out there listening to me, in the end of everything, always know you matter. And so if you hold on to that, you're gonna be all right, man. Listen, if I had to pencil one besides find Christ, I really say, man, find your circle and make sure that circle is safe.
That's good, bro. Jay, it's on you, bro.
Let me say this first, man. I love y'all, brothers, man.
Love you too, bro.
This has been phenomenal, man. First, man, I'll say this to other black men: salvation is not optional. Jesus Christ really will make you a better man.
My God,
and that's the truth, bro. I mean, when I'm looking at y'all tonight, man, and I mean, y'all wouldn't be who y'all are, man, had it not been for Jesus. Here's the second thing. Bernard alluded to it. You know, we're gonna all probably say the same thing. I know it's not easy, but man, don't quit.
my God.
I mean, that's simple. It's not profound, but man, don't quit, man. Man, keep going, and it's gonna turn. Here's the next thing. I'm on your team. Not your enemy. Man, I want all us to win. And here's why I'm saying this, man, because man, so much of what I see on social media, man, is brothers talking about who don't like them and who's jealous of them. And man, that's so elementary, bro.
My God.
And man, if you over 30, you know, talking about who don't like you, man, you too grown for that. and so I mean, no, seriously, man. I mean,
that's the truth, though.
There are people, man, who have offended me, who have done some things I don't like, but man, I'm still trying to preserve the relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand that it's needed and it's necessary. The next thing, remember that the people you love the most are affected by your daily decision.
Whew. The
people you love the most are affected by your daily decisions. I mean, so man, you know, you got to really make some good decisions. And then last, man, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but I just got to say it. But put an expiration date on being a boy. You know,
say that again, bro. Say that again.
I think a lot of cats, man, just got to grow up. You know, it is only in the black community, and I heard ET say this. It is only in our communities, bro, that you can be in the hood getting drunk and high with your son. Other cultures don't do that. Well, I mean, they probably do, but nobody do it like we do it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it was Dr. Umar Johnson who said this, man. He said that you have a life age and then you have a psychological age. So you might be 45, but psychologically you 25. Mentally you acting 21. You know what I'm saying? So man, I think that you know, I think there has to be a challenge. I think Bernard said this, man, get you some accountability partners, man, because a lot of times we don't want accountability. We keep our friendship sometimes on the surface level because we don't want anybody to kind of mess up our playgrounds, man. But I think, man, having your relationship with God, man, that's you know, that's gonna really shift and change, you know what I'm saying, your life for the better. But I stop there.
Thanks, Jay. It's on you, Ash.
Okay, I got 10 points. Not for real. Let me stop there. Now, first of all, man, if I could tell black man, son, man, I love you. I love you. And we need to tell each other more that that, you know what I'm saying, and that we love and concern about each other. You know, I think Jay said it. I want to see all of us. I want to see all of us win. And another thing is, don't be scared to for the sharpening. And what I mean by that, the Bible tells us iron sharpens iron. And sometime in that sharpening, it's gonna be some heat. It's friction in it, and it's gonna hurt. And
Yeah, bro.
but at the same time, it's working for your good. You
Yes,
know what
sir.
I'm saying? What had happened a lot now is the devalue of us as men has come, especially in our community. It's been almost taught that, you know, even our women been taught and have kind of even championed it. I'm independent, and then wonder why they're on Facebook at 57 years old still looking for a man. But you keep telling somebody you're independent. Independent means you don't need nobody. But
Yeah.
I digress. You know what I'm saying? But my point of that is, my point of saying that is that it takes something for us to sharpen one another. Be around someone that challenges you. I love each one of y'all, man, because it's something I get from each and one of y'all that helps me be a better man and a better person. It's certain things, your conversation that we have together. I glean something from it every time. I take something from it every time that I can use. And so I know that we're here together to try to come to a goal. This ain't one thing I love about it, that we ain't neither one of us trying to outshine the other one.
No, sir.
Ain't nobody here trying to do, you know what I'm saying, do the most in here. I don't know. Derek might have tried to do most tonight. I don't know. I think he went on a tangent. I mean, he was like point number 10, number 12. But but I love that, because let me tell you, I have no desire for political stuff. I don't. But I get what I need from him. You know what I'm saying? And so
He froze, bro. He froze.
I
He
know.
froze.
Hey, so I get what I need from him, and that helps me in the areas that I may be lacking or I don't desire. He help me out on that. It's like with us, if I got a question about certain things, I know, hey, I get with Jay or I get with them, and that helps each one of us to be better. So don't think about it, brothers. If you hear anything, you're not by yourself. You're not alone. You have someone. Get somebody, like you say, in your circle who is not trying to be in competition with you. And like Jay said, I'm a big champion for men. I want men to be who they are. Stand up in our communities. Anything that we need to combat, we cannot do it if we don't have the men being men in our communities. Certain things don't happen when you got the men involved. Certain things don't happen when they see men involved. So when we get together, everything else fall in line. I believe that wholeheartedly. When the head is in the right spot, the body will follow. And so what done happened in our communities, in my opinion, is we are headless now. And I ain't talking about having one person who leads us. I'm talking about having the men where they're supposed to be. Certain things don't happen when the men are around. But if the men, like Jay said, spend more time getting high with their sons, or the sad thing is when you meet your dad in jail.
My God.
You see what I'm saying? And you meet your granddaddy in prison. This is happening. Family reunions are happening behind gated communities. You see what I'm saying? When they should be someone, if I messed up, I should do everything I can to eliminate my son going through the same problems I'm having. We should, these generational, y'all call them generational curses, whatever you want to call it, it ought to be certain things that ought to stop with you. You know what I'm saying? I want my son to have better than I have. So if I can tell black men anything, man, I love you guys. I love you, black man. Hey, bro, stay strong, stay encouraged, stay in the fight. You're not by yourself. And get around some brothers going to help sharpen you and move you to a higher level.
I'll bring it in for a closing, man. I have three things. Number one, black man, I see you. Black man, I hear you. And black man, I understand you. Right? And a lot of times, man, we just don't feel like we're seen. Right? And it's hard. And so, brother, we see you, we hear you, and we understand you. You know, I go back to what Bernard mentioned earlier about what his dad told him about that pressure. Right? That pressure, man, that's a lot. That's a lot. And there are times, man, and if one more thing goes wrong, I'm gonna snap. Man, it's been an honor for us to have each of you following us tonight and being a part of this conversation. Thank you so much for your live chat comments, for the question, Ms. Morris, that you raised, for all of you being a part of what's going on. My brother Bernard mentioned this. I want to put it back on the screen for all of us to be able to see. This upcoming Friday at Arnett Chapel and Me Church, hosted by my brother, Pastor Bernard E. Hudson. It's a 7 Last Words Good Friday service. Each of us will be having a chance to preach that night, along with Pastor Nakisha Harris and Reverend Lisa Hudson as well. I'm excited about us being together, excited about us being able to preach the message of Jesus Christ. We've all been alive a certain amount of time. Y'all pray for us that we honor the man of God's instructions. But I'm excited about us just being together, man, in that regard. Also, man, Jay mentioned Black Boys on Prime. This is a blurry but a visual of what that looked like. So if you're looking for that show, Black Boys on Prime, please go watch that. I plan on watching it with my son as soon as we possibly can, man. So Jay, thanks for mentioning that in that regard. Let me again just say thank you to my brother, Pastor Julius Harris. I had each of our conversations mapped out for 2024. He texted us one day and said, "Hey man, we got to talk about this." And I felt like it was a pressing conversation to move up, man. So I'm glad that he shared. We do this show together. We try to put things together to make sure that we come live, that we are speaking to things that are on our hearts. And so ever grateful to God for who he is. I want to leave with this visual rendering that I was able to see. This rendering showed a woman chained to a girl and a man in irons at work in the field. And for those individuals who may ask the question, why we're talking about this, my response to you is you are part of the problem. When we want to ignore the realities that my people, that we are impacted by the systemic challenges of our world, you want to ignore that, you are part of the problem. People meet you in your now, don't know about your then, right? We have overcome many things, and we are overcoming many things. It does not mean that we shouldn't still have the conversation about those things. Pastor Stallworth put something in the chat that I thought was so very, very important that I want to put out there that I think is key for all of us. He mentioned about making sure that our members are registered to vote, right? I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but register to vote, that you may be a part of the conversation and a part of the fight. So every clergy out there, I want to encourage you to make sure that we're doing all we can to get our people registered to vote. If they're able to register, please register, and then encourage them to actually educate themselves on who's on the ballot, and get involved in that political process. It's very, very important. We cannot just keep complaining about what we're seeing and what we're hearing. You don't become a part of that. Get out of the mindset of assuming your vote don't count. Get out of that mindset that your vote don't count. The only vote that don't count, the one that's not casted. And I think that's important. Black brothers, stay in the fight. Black brothers, stay in the fight. Jay said it earlier. Our families are impacted by decisions that we make every single day. Every single day. My son and Ash's son, our sons are named after us. And every day I'm challenged with this. I'm challenged with asking myself, is my name worth anything? Right? I gave my son my name. Is he going, as he gets older, is he going to regret the name he has to carry because it's not worth anything? And so I'm mindful of that. Let me close this show out by giving an amazing congratulations and great is the Lord to our brother, Pastor Bernard E. Hudson. Tell him your great news, bro.
Thanks for that, Derek. I have the opportunity to finish up here in the next week or so and graduating from Hood Theological Seminary in Salisbury, North Carolina, with a Doctor of Ministry degree.
Yes, sir.
I sent it to this group like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. There were some times I told my wife as well, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, but God is worthy.
Yes, sir, bro.
God is due all honor and all praise. So I'm thankful for this great milestone. Thank you for the opportunity to say that.
Yes, sir. And to all y'all preachers out there, he gonna be a real doc. You're talking about doc. That's a real doc. You address him now as Reverend Dr. Bernard E. Hudson, or you want to come see me. Listen, we are the Covenant Brothers. This is our great conversation. We love each other. If you want to see us in person, come this Friday to Arnett Chapel AME Church in Quincy, Florida. We're going to be together and supporting each other by preaching the message of Jesus Christ. We love you all. That's Pastor Bernard E. Hudson of Arnett Chapel AME Church. That's Pastor Roosevelt Rogers III of the Old Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church in Havana, Florida. That is Pastor Julius Harris of the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church of Havana, Florida. That's Pastor Richard Ashe II, who's the pastor of the Net Church in Quincy, Florida. And I am Derek McGee, the pastor of the Bible-based church in Tallahassee, Florida. We are the Covenant Brothers. We love y'all. Thank y'all so much. Have an amazing night. God bless you all.